It is like 10 in the morning and my entire family is sleeping, so unfortunately I cannot yell this the way that I wanted to. But I am genuinely tired of the weebs, the Koreaboos, and whatever we're going to call China obsessed people now. I'm genuinely sick and tired of them. East Asia has been getting so much more popularity over the past few years, and it's great, right? We get to learn about new culture and different things and cool stuff. Yeah, it's great, except this is why we can't have nice things, because you guys don't know how to be normal. Now, the title says Japan because I feel like that's where it originally started, but it is happening to several East Asian countries, and more recently it happened with China. So I'm going to be talking about this conundrum that we are seeing, of the reason why I think it is, and also why you all need to stop.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now, for this video, I wanted to get more information on, the different East Asian countries because I personally have never been. I am only limited to seeing other people's experiences on the internet and also just doing my own research. But I wanted to get somebody's firsthand experience with this entire thing. I had a classmate last semester where we worked together, we studied together. He's pretty cool, and he is from Korea and also lived in both Korea and China for a time. So I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to interview somebody, right? Like, finally, I'm in my journalism era. I can interview people and get some, firsthand accounts, firsthand experience, some primary evidence, if you will. So I did the interview. I did it on my Mac, and I screen recorded it on my Mac, and I turned on the audio. I did not know that it would only record my audio and not his audio. So for the whole duration of the 30 minutes that I'm interviewing him, you can't hear a word he says. It is literally just me asking a question and then sitting there going, basically talking to a ghost because you can't even hear him talk. So, first question. How do you feel about the way that Korea is portrayed in Western media? Do you think that is truly representative of Korean culture? I have no excuses and frankly no words. I apologize for my incompetence. First of all, I feel like I wasted his time. I feel so bad. I did not tell him that this happened because I feel bad. But secondly, also, like, I really wanted that, firsthand experience from somebody who was actually living in Korea for a time and is currently back there. It would have been so great for this video, and I fumbled it. I apologize. Like I said, I literally had a whole mental breakdown about it the minute I found out I was like this close to punching a hole in the wall. But it's okay. I'm still going to use the footage. Now, obviously, you can't hear what he's saying, but I just want to show you guys that it did actually happen, and I'm not just pulling this out of my butt or making this up. Like, I did interview him. I was taking notes, of course, while I was interviewing him. So I'm just going to use the notes and kind of paraphrase what he said to certain questions that I asked. Of course, I don't want to say anything verbatim because it's not in his actual words, and I don't want to, like, misconstrue or twist what he said. So I'm just going to give a general gist of the things that he responded to in my interview, and next time I will make sure that the audio actually records. But anyways, we'll get to that later. Let's go ahead and talk about China. So I already made a whole video on the whole Little Red Book situation. TikTok was being banned, all hope was lost, and then China and Little Red Book came in to save the day. It got everybody their favorite addiction back. All of a sudden, people were all over China. China is so amazing. Wow, China is so futuristic. Wow, their lifestyle is so amazing. Wow, Chinese men are hot.
So, are we all getting Chinese boyfriends now?
今年真的非常流行毛领夹克，准备了3套毛领夹克传单，看一下有没有。
In that video where I was talking about the whole Little Red Book situation, I was very, very nice. I was trying to be, chill and sympathetic like I normally try to in my videos. I didn't really think about how bizarre this statement was. This girl said, "Are we all getting Chinese boyfriends now?" As if she didn't realize that attractive Chinese men always existed. Like, Chinese dudes always existed. Hot guys in all cultures exist. What do you mean now we're getting Chinese boyfriends? Did it never occur to you that Chinese men and just Chinese people in general could be good-looking people? Anyways, everybody went through a honeymoon stage and everyone was like, oh, it was American propaganda that stopped us from seeing the real China, and this is what we were missing out on, and stopping us from being able to appreciate, certain aspects of China. Yeah, so I'm not saying that there isn't obviously propaganda against China because we're not exactly on the best terms with them right now. But let's be real here. It was not American propaganda that stopped you from learning about China. You just never took the time to learn yourself. I've been learning about China since I was young. And I'm not saying this to be like, I'm one of the OGs, but it's just more so the fact that I still learned about them regardless of propaganda or, not knowing too much about them. No, I didn't know everything about it, obviously, but I was learning about all the things that I found interesting. I want to make this very clear. Nobody's obligated to have to learn about somebody else's culture, right? Like, there are several cultures that I know absolutely nothing about and other cultures that you probably know nothing about. Nobody can learn all the cultures in the world and all the, different countries and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, like, you weren't stopped like some of y'all are trying to make it seem, It's not like anybody was holding you at gunpoint telling you that you can't research anything on China. You could have done it. You just didn't do it. But okay, we have Little Red Book now, and now we can learn everything about their culture. No, you cannot. You're not learning everything about their culture. You're not learning the good and the bad. You're just getting the internet version, which obviously does not encompass everything. You say you were tricked by propaganda, but then proceed to fall for another type of propaganda. You only care about and got to see the big cities in China, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, but you completely disregarded the downsides that might exist and the very real troubles that Chinese citizens could face. The economic disparities, the intense censorship, which just exists everywhere, but it does not operate on the same level. And if you use Little Red Book, you would see that. You'd be shocked at the things that you weren't allowed to talk about that maybe you were used to talking about. The massive slave labor issue that goes on out there that everyone just completely suddenly forgot about. I mean, the Shein and the Temu factories. So many poor citizens being exploited for their labor. And the thing is, around the time when that whole thing was happening, I was doing research for the video, watching a bunch of other people's videos, right? I go down the comments because, you need to kind of gauge where everybody is. And every time somebody proposes this reality that like, hey, there is a lot of cool stuff, but there's also some downsides and that maybe we need to take into consideration, people will be so fast to deny it, which leads me to believe that you do not care about these countries like you claim that you do. To love something is to acknowledge and accept everything about it, meaning loving the great things about it and also recognizing where improvements need to be made, accepting that it is flawed and that maybe, just maybe, certain things need to be spoken out against in order to create a better change. You can love a country and still acknowledge that there may be bad parts about it. This goes with anything. You can love something and recognize that there are downsides or there are things that need to change. And it's the same exact concept with Japan. Japan is arguably the first place where this weird obsessive behavior occurred in, Western countries and stuff, specifically with the rise and popularity of anime. Now, according to other people, you could not go around even thinking about anime without being jumped for it. Like, people would straight up harass you and bully you if you even mentioned that you like anime. But now it's one of the most popular forms of entertainment, not just in America, but all across the world. Which of course is not a bad thing because it shares their culture and their customs with us. But it does not share everything. Yet there are people out here who seriously believe that they watch anime and suddenly they know everything about Japanese culture. It gives this false sense of being informed because it's like, you may know a little bit more than the average person who doesn't really know a lot about Japanese culture, but you still yourself also don't really know as much as you think you do. You're not learning as much as you think you are. You're learning the easily digestible aesthetic version of it. But unfortunately, you have some fools that can't seem to tell the difference. And you got these crazy obsessive fans who watch anime and suddenly think they know everything about Japan. People who know like the bare minimum, like, bowing to show respect, or acting like they know how to speak Japanese or everything about their language when they really just memorize like the 3 most commonly used words and they spam that. Baka, nani, arigato, arigato. And they don't even be pronouncing it right. And then they act like they know everything about their cuisine and their food because they know how to eat with chopsticks. They just suddenly dub themselves Japan experts for literally knowing the bare minimum. Oh, and speaking of dub, don't even get me started on the blind dub haters who, once again, think they know everything about Japanese culture and their language and have a superiority complex for doing the bare minimum of watching their animes and sub. And for some reason act like they're doing the whole country a favor. Now, of course, it isn't all sub watchers. There are plenty of people who just enjoy watching sub, and that's fine. I enjoy watching sub. I also watch dub. There are plenty of normal ones out there, but the abnormal ones, they will literally sit here and act like you're committing some type of a crime because you watch the anime dub. Sitting here crying erasure, oh, it's erasure, as if Japanese animation is the only type of like show or animation or film that gets dubbed. As if animation shows and movies from almost every other country don't also get dubbed. As if Japan literally doesn't dub America's works too, completely misusing the definition of erasure. Meanwhile, you don't even recognize the erasure that's happening in your own country. But that is going to be a video for another day. And God forbid you try to make any criticisms against certain aspects of anime. Like, I don't know, the amount of glorified that exist in so many different animes. You try to point this out and you'll be eaten alive. People will say, oh, it's just fictional, so it doesn't matter, there's no real victims, so just let people enjoy things. Or my favorite, the technicality loophole. Well, technically she looks like a child, but she's in the body of like a 1,000-year-old witch, so it's fine that she's dating a 60-year-old man. Also going to be a video that I'm putting out, most likely very soon. And of course, thanks to these things, it ends up translating to real life, and people once again romanticize, glorify, and even fetishize certain aspects of Japanese culture. Oh wow, Japan is perfect, Japan is so safe, Japan has amazing schools. Yes, there are a lot of cool aspects of Japan, just as there are a lot of cool aspects of every other country. But once again, there are downsides just as there are to every other country, completely disregarding things like the rate of women who are essayed. How common it is to have certain men literally try to take a picture up your skirt, so much so that they have to put signs on places like the subway. How demanding and harsh the work life can be for many citizens there, with things like black companies. And once again, yes, I can already hear a bunch of blind glazers being like, well, this happens everywhere, it's not just Japan. Yeah, buddy, that's the point, is to acknowledge the fact that it happens in a lot of places, including Japan. But so many of y'all completely disregard that and act like that's not a fact. And of course, we can't forget about Korea. Thanks to things like K-pop and K-dramas, Korean culture has been making its way into Western media and Western life, but again, of course, without downsides. The internet version of Korean culture, similar to Japanese culture, gives off the aesthetic version of a beautiful, simple, and effortless life, with a very, very big emphasis on beauty. Everyone in Korea looks like a model all the time, right? 24/7, we all know this. With K-pop idols basically being ambassadors for their country, the expectations and the pressure to look, act, perform, and do everything perfectly is insanely high. Koreans are all supposed to be these perfect-looking K-pop idols with their extensive skincare routines, and that ended up getting really popular in America. You can walk into several stores and see so much Korean skincare. People are so obsessed with the way that Koreans look that they are literally trying to change their race, Asian subliminals, and literally just getting plastic surgery. And so for my classmate, his name is James, the guy who I ended up interviewing, he had some input on this as well, as somebody who, again, grew up in Korea and also for a time in China. He said that, of course, when it comes to K-pop idols, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that goes completely unnoticed. Horrific treatment of K-pop idols, he said, only really got popular in Korea at about 2015. But then and before then, everyone just simply blindly idolized them. But now, thanks to social media, a lot of artists are now speaking out and bringing to light their stories of their trainee stages and their beginning stages, how demanding and also even abusive some of these companies can be. It's not just pretty boys dancing on the stage all the time. What goes on in the background for a lot of these idols is completely overshadowed. And on the topic of school, he also talked a little bit about the school systems in Korea and that academics is very, very important. He said that in his experience, even when he's living out here in America, you have, of course, places like Koreatown where a lot of Koreans obviously live in the same area, and you will still have that very strict and demanding mentality of a lot of Korean parents, putting their kids in academies, expecting them to get, the best grades, wanting them to get into the best schools, and he said it's a lot worse over in Korea. He also experienced this in China as well. He said he ended up witnessing some kids being physically disciplined or verbally abused and dishonored, and he expressed how Korean parents strive their best to get their kids, as best as they can academically, so that way when they grow older, they are a competitive candidate for schools and work. And in his personal experience, he actually ended up coming to America and ended up liking the school systems better out here. Now, he did go to a private school, is what he told me. So I was like, yeah, that's probably why you had that premium education. But still, again, this is how he expressed his time in both Korea and China, things that he noticed, things that he picked up on, and the difference how it operates here in America. Again, he is just one person. Obviously, this does not account for the entire population. This is how everybody feels and thinks. But it was just to get the perspective of somebody who actually lived there for a time, so they know a little bit more about the culture. And again, as I mentioned before, whenever you try to bring this up to certain crazy obsessive fans, they will immediately deflect these notions. And of course, I'm not saying that there isn't propaganda and negative racist stereotypes against these countries. For the longest time, things like East Asian food was demonized and made to look weird and foreign. Their media, things like anime, was deemed childish. Of course, people are going to push negative narratives on a certain country if they don't like the country or the people. But there's a difference between pushing negativity versus acknowledging the real negative occurrences that happen in these countries, rather than pretending they don't exist to keep your perfect fantasies alive. Some people think that it's flattering the way that they talk about Asians and their culture. They think they're complimenting them, right? Oh, you guys have such an amazing country. Oh, you guys' culture is so perfect. Oh, I wish I could be like you and, live like you and look like you and be Asian. But just put this into perspective for a second. Imagine somebody watches you every single day while you're at work or school. You look put together, you get there on time every single day, and you do your work well. And they come up to you one day and they're just like, you know what? I wish I was like you. I wish I had your life. You always look like you're so put together and you always know what you're doing and you never have any issues going on. I wish I could be like you. Sure, it seems flattering at first, but it completely dismisses the fact that you might not actually be doing as well as people think you are. You look fine, but you just had a mental breakdown before you got here. You're seemingly wearing nice clothes and look put together, but you're at risk of being evicted. You're always busy doing your work and get it in on time, but that's because it distracts you from the horrible thoughts that plague you throughout the day. Looking at just the surface can completely invalidate someone's very real struggles that they're having. And that's exactly what a lot of y'all are doing when it comes to these countries. You're basically just ignoring the very real struggles of the citizens and the very real things that may need to change. To care about something and to love it is to acknowledge all aspects of it. To recognize that yes, there are amazing, beautiful things, but it also can be flawed. But most of you, again, don't actually care about these countries. You only care about the TikTok version of these countries. You only care about the image of the country that directly benefits you, because that allows you to pity yourself and constantly compare yourself to other countries and the way that other people live. So you can continue to wallow in pain about how miserable you are living in this certain country and, oh, how I wish I could just move to this country because everything would be perfect there, right? If I went to that other country, then there would be no problems. Everything would be perfect. I could live the perfect anime life and I could fall down the stairs and be caught by a beautiful Korean man. So you could sweep me away and live happily ever after. You only care about the fantasy that you temporarily get to live in so that you live a better life vicariously through them. That's why you get so upset when people try to point out the negatives or the downsides, because it threatens the fantasy that your brain works so hard to build to protect you until that mirage shatters and it brings you back to reality. You don't care about these places, their citizens, nor their culture, because the minute they stop being useful to you, you forget about them. Let's be real here. How many of you actually still use Little Red Book since TikTok came back? Be honest. How many of you actually took the time to learn more about the things that the Chinese citizens on there were telling you about? Actually research their lives and how they actually live on a daily basis? How many of you are actually continuing to try and learn Chinese? There was nothing of any value that was keeping people invested and interested in China except the fact that it brought back their favorite app. Even though China has several cultural traditions and beautiful customs that are worthy to become popular, no one even really cares or talks about them anymore. But now that anime and K-pop and K-dramas are cool and aesthetic now, even though you literally would have gotten bullied for it in the past, it's a staple in everybody's life to escape reality. And I can understand that to a degree. I understand that we all need an escape. Anime is 100% that for me. I was just thinking about how YouTube was kind of disappointing me lately, and I just move on to anime. I'm actually on season 2 of K-Project. I understand that watching something that can help you fantasize and romanticize a better life, especially if you just aren't doing well mentally or you're just trying to get through the harder days. But it should never be at the expense of the country and the people that you're romanticizing. Again, it's not flattering like some of you think it is. It's weird, it's uncomfortable, and it's just downright disrespectful sometimes. And once again, it completely invalidates and dismisses the very real struggles that these citizens may face on a daily basis. The things that aren't shown on TikTok and Little Red Book and Instagram and all those other places. The things that may not be shown in anime and K-dramas. And I would also like to remind you that a lot of these people in these countries literally look at America and Western countries and feel the exact same way about us. They may watch TV shows and Hollywood movies and think that that's what America is really like. I've seen quite a few interviews of people asking East Asian citizens on what America is like, to them, what it looks like to them. And many of them give a very similar fantastical perception of us.
하면 가장 유명한 거 뭔가요?
햄버거. 미국 하면 스킨십이 글로벌하다. 저스틴 비버. 바이든.
피자? 피자나 햄버거 같은 패스트푸드류? 아니, 자동차도 유명하다고 생각합니다.
가장 개방적인 미국 문화가 좀 미국 하면 떠오르는 것 같아요.
미국 하면 딱 떠오르는 단어 3가지 말씀해 주시겠어요?
캘리포니아. 마약. 난 예쁜 사람. 미국 예쁜 사람 많잖아.
넓은 땅이랑 다양한 인종들, 자동차.
개방적인 문화, 총기, 다양한 인종.
James, my classmate that I interviewed, he literally told me that he wanted to come to American schools because he watched Kissing Booth and he thought that's what high school was like. Obviously, when he came here, he was disappointed, but it's literally the same concept. Does America have great things? Yes, it does. Is America perfect? No, absolutely not even close. I would definitely not recommend that anybody moves all the way here just because they watched the Avengers and they think that that's what, everything is like. Grass is greener on the other side syndrome is something that is very common among people who want to change their living circumstance. Of course, you're always going to look at, other countries and think, wow, they're so perfect, they're so amazing, they're so better than we are. And yes, there are times where certain countries do beat out other countries with certain things. Like I said, I'm not saying that Korea and China and Japan don't have amazing things that I feel like beat out America. The sole reason that I watch anime is because I think it's better than like American shows and films. But no one country is perfect. And you just need to remember that so you don't get disappointed when you think your favorite country is utopia. It's not. That doesn't exist. Every country has up and downs. Every country has its bad people, its good people. Certain things that are just not okay should not be justifiable in certain countries just because you like the country. You can like the country and recognize that there are bad things about it. And that's the last thing I want to touch on before we leave. Why is it specifically East Asian cultures that are getting obsessed over? Like, I understand why people obsess over the aspects of the country. Like I just explained, they're looking for an escape from reality, right? But couldn't any culture provide that type of relief? I mean, every culture has its unique customs and shows and stuff like that. Things that could very easily be romanticized. So why is it Japan and Korea and like kind of China, but at the same time not really? People still don't even really like acknowledge China, except for maybe things like, I don't know, Kung Fu or Genshin Impact, but it's still not on the same level of Japan and Korea. So for this, I personally don't 100% know. A few things that came to mind for me is skin tone. Now, I normally don't like to bring race into things, for no reason, but I think it's relevant because a lighter skin tone has always kind of been in favor of people all around the world. The fairer the skin, the better the treatment, right? There's literally products that you can buy in certain East Asian countries to make you look lighter. You'll see a lot of K-pop idols heavily edited and also just wearing heavy makeup to make them appear shades lighter, when in real life they're actually pretty tan. So it could be that people already kind of have a bias towards lighter skin, making them a bit more appealing to romanticize. Because I mean, you don't see people romanticizing, I don't know, Jamaican culture. You don't see Jamaican subliminals. You don't see people trying to turn into Jamaicans. Or Indian culture. People have been hating on Indians for like several years. I have no idea why. Although there's something called like the Great Shift, where people are suddenly realizing that Indian people are also pretty. And it's not even about their culture again. It's like just shallow, oh wow, Indian people are attractive. And it's literally nothing even about their culture. Another thing I thought about is what I said in the beginning of the video with aspects of their culture being very easily digestible, making it super perfect for aesthetics. When you think about anime, especially in the more cutesy ones, you could very easily lump those into a bunch of aesthetics that have gotten really popular over the years. Kawaii core, Lolita fashion, coquette, soft girl, stuff like that. Or even Korea with their beauty standards and stuff. Their whole thing about skincare fits very well into like the it girl, the clean girl, vanilla girl, even like things like Pilates. So, that's just my theory. I don't know if that's actually the case. I could probably do a deeper analysis on this. But either way, you can appreciate a culture without obsessing over it and without trying to act like you know everything about it when you don't. You just know the bare minimum, learning from shallow sources on the internet. And that's fine. Again, nobody has to learn like every single thing about a person's culture. Just be aware that knowing the shallow aspects of it does not make you an expert. So please stop acting like you are. And for the remaining East Asian countries that have not been plagued with this weird obsessive trend yet, hide your wife, hide your kid, and hide your husbands, because they're coming for everybody out here. Vietnam, I have a feeling you guys are next, so be careful. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Be respectful, don't be weird. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.